Hi guys, make sure to subscribe to my channel Cositas de Mili. This is a video of me going to Senegal, Dakar. I went to the House of Slaves, Maison des Esclaves, and its door of no return is a museum and a memorial to the Atlantic slave trade on Goree Island, 3 kilometers off the coast of the city of Dakar, Senegal. Make sure to listen to what tour guide has to say. We went as well to Pink Lake, we saw baobab trees, and went to Art and Crafts Museum. Enjoy my video, I hope you like it, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.
The statue is supported by a famous West African drum called the djembe. Okay? And that djembe used to play a very important part in inter-villages communications back in the slavery days. Like when a village had some news to spread around the villages, they used to just play some coded beats in the drum, and the song was the message. That's why they call it the talking drum. Okay? At any time the surrounding villagers heard the song, they knew exactly what that village wanted to tell them. Okay? And they also used to play the same song for the next village, and so on and so on and so on. Okay? So that's how they were communicating back in those days. Be careful down the coast, don't go here, stay here. But those songs were mysteries to the white people because when they hear them, they could not understand the meaning. Okay? And that's why also the Americans understood very early, in the early slavery days, that this djembe was a way of communications between the slaves, so they decided to completely ban it in the US. Okay? It was banned everywhere in the US except Louisiana, because Louisiana used to belong to France. Okay? But it was also allowed in the Caribbean and in South America, but not in the US. Okay? Not only the djembe, but all the drum were banned in the US. Okay? And that's the reason why the slaves in the US, to express their feelings and sufferation, they had to use something else, their voice, just that singing. And that's how many types of music came out, like the gospel, blues, because they deprived them from playing any type of drums. The only thing they had was their voice. Okay, and that's why nowadays they sing very well now in the US. They've been singing for generations. Okay? Yes. Any question? All the kids who used to come to this house, that's where they used to park them, here and also in there. And those who were considered as children back in those days, they were approximately between the ages of 4 up to 12. Less than 4, they used to leave them with their moms over there in the woman's cell to sell them together because they were too young. Between 4 and 12, they used to separate them from their moms and keep them in here. To sell them, they make sure that they sell them separately from their moms. Okay, that way the family ties will disappear forever. But if they were 12 and up, if they had the 60 kilograms required, they used to sell them as men. Also, back in those days, they couldn't know exactly how old those children were. Okay, so to approximate the ages, they used to check the dentitions of those kids. The stronger the teeth, the older. Merci beaucoup. As as you also can notice, is the biggest cell in this house. Okay, so women alone were kept in here. Women with infants were also kept in here. Young girls who were checked and who were not virgins or not virgins anymore, they also used to bring them in here and sell them like women. So a virgin girl back then used to have two special prices: her virginity and herself. Because if she doesn't get pregnant at a certain period of time after being there, they used to just bring her back in a cell like this and now sell her like a woman. Okay? Also, the main source of the slave trade used to be the prisoners from the tribal wars. Like I was telling you earlier, when the Europeans came to Africa, they realized that in Africa we have many, many tribes. So they took advantage of that. They came up with the idea of dividing and conquering, or divide and rule. What they used to do back then is just put the tribes into war. And the tribe which won the war used to keep the defeated tribe prisoner. They also used to have Catholic missionaries living on the island. They were the ones going to the coast, in contact with the tribal chiefs along the coast, collect those prisoners from the tribal wars and bring them to this island and sell them as slaves. Catholic priests used to do that, unfortunately. Okay? You can also see how deep the church was involved in the trade. Okay? Also, when those Catholic missionaries used to go to the coast, they used to exchange with the tribal chiefs along the coast, one man for one gun. And the reason why they used to do that is to encourage them for more tribal wars. Because more guns, more war. More war, more prisoners, more people to bring here and to sell as slaves. Okay? So it was just like a vicious cycle. Also, if the slave trade was possible in Africa, we have to face it as Africans. Okay? It's because of the collaboration of some of the tribal chiefs that we had back in those days along the coast of West Africa. They were the ones who really opened the doors for those Europeans to come here and make slavery possible. But if you look at history, those tribal chiefs, they really did not have any choice. The reason was that they only had two options back in those days. Either they collaborate with the Europeans. If they refuse to collaborate, those Europeans will just go see their rival or enemy tribes, furnish them with guns and tell them, go and get those people, we need them. Okay? So back then, either they collaborate or they end up becoming slaves. So if you were in that position as a tribal chief, what would you really do for your tribe to survive? Okay? So it was a big dilemma. Okay? Also, someone was asking about why did they choose blacks. Okay? You have to remember one thing, guys. The first slaves, they were not blacks. The first slaves, they were Indians from South America. I'm talking about the modern day slavery. Okay? Because slavery has been around since the Roman period. When I talk about the modern day slavery, it's just slaves taken from Africa to the Americas. And everything started from the discovery of the Americas. When the Spanish went to the Americas, they found some Indians over there called the Native Americans, like the Aztecs, Mayas, Incas, all those Indian tribes as slaves. So they were using them as slaves. But it came a time in history that those Indians were getting sick because of many epidemics that the European brought, and it was decimating the Indian population. Okay? So a Spanish Catholic missionary who was also the representative of the Spanish king over there in South America, he used to live in Lima, Peru. His name was Bartolomeo de las Casas. I don't know if you heard that name somewhere. Bartolomeo de las Casas was a Spanish Catholic missionary, and he was the one representing the Spanish king over there in South America. If you go to South America today, they call him the Indian saver, because he's the one who saved the Indians from slavery. But he was also the one who had the idea to replace those dying Indians by black people. So when he had that idea, he went and talked to the King of Spain about it, and the King of Spain gave him the agreement to come to Africa and get some slaves. But at that point, the Spanish had a big problem. They had the idea to come to Africa, get some slaves to replace the Indians over there in South America, but they didn't know back in those days the western coast of Africa very, very well. The Portuguese did. The Spanish know very well the Americas, but not Africa. Okay? So the Portuguese came and told to the Spanish, just stay in South America, we'll come to Africa, get some slaves for you, and sell them to you. Okay? So the idea of enslaving black people came from the Spanish. because they needed them to replace the Indians over there in South America and make them work in the fields also and in the minings in South America. But the action was started by the Portuguese because they know the western coast of Africa better than any Europeans back in those days, okay? So it was time for the Portuguese to make money, so they just jump on the action. They start coming to West Africa, get some slaves and supply all the Spanish colonies in South America. Also, when the Portuguese realized that the Spanish were doing very well with their slaves, they had the idea to come here, get some slaves for themselves, and take them to their own colony in South America called Brazil, until they were kicked out of this island by the Dutch. The Dutch also had some colonies in South America where they used to take slaves, Dutch Guyana, Suriname, so they used to come here, get some slaves, and take them over there. Until the British came in the game, until the French came in the game, okay? So it was just like a big game. And selling slaves back then was just selling like all in diamonds nowadays. That was the biggest business back then, okay? So everybody had to have a piece of the cake, okay? And if the world is what it is today, it's because of slavery, okay? Yes. Slavery made many people many countries become rich. They don't accept it, but they were rich because of slavery. The Netherlands, the US, all those countries become rich because of the slave trade. But they don't want to, they don't want to accept it, exactly, okay? Yes. Any other question? And what makes it even worse, you can see, the church was there from the beginning to the end. The church approved slavery, okay? And that's the sad part of it, okay? In this world, you were born to be slaves, but in the other world, God will stay with you, okay? But while you are in this world, you're going to be a slave, because that you were born to be slaves, okay? And also back in those days, black people were considered as inferior because of the color of their skin. So they had always been saying blacks as inferior, okay? Why not use those inferior people to do our dirty job, okay? Why not, okay? They were uncivilized, they were almost naked, they were living like animals, so why not civilize them, okay? So that was the mentality behind, okay? Yes. And if the church approved, of course, everybody go for it, okay? Yes. Toussaint Louverture, have you heard that name somewhere? No? Okay, Toussaint Louverture was a former slave, okay? He was born in the... Okay, so he was freed. When he was freed, he joined Napoleon's army. Okay, and Toussaint Louverture was also one of the soldiers, French soldiers who were formed in Savannah, to participate in the War of Independence in the U.S. Okay, so he participated in the War of Independence in the U.S. Okay, in 1776. So after that, he came back to Haiti, but he was free. So when Napoleon restarted slavery in all the French colonies, all the slaves in Haiti, they just stood up behind that man called Toussaint Louverture and started fighting against Napoleon's army to stay free. And they fought against Napoleon's army for many, many years. Finally, Napoleon was forced to give them their independence on January 1st, 1804. Not 1904, but 1804. So Haiti became the very first black republic in this world. The very first one was Haiti. And they fought for their independence and got it on January 1st, 1804. But unfortunately, their leader, named Toussaint Louverture, was finally caught by Napoleon's soldiers after being betrayed by his right-hand man called Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Okay? So they betrayed him, Napoleon caught him, deported him in France, and put him in isolation in a fortress, and they just let him die of cold, hunger, and tuberculosis. That man was starved to death because he had the guts to fight against Napoleon's army. Okay? And you might heard about a lot of revolution around the world. But the Haitian Revolution is one of the biggest revolutions ever. The reason was that it's just an army of slaves with no weapons at all that beat the strongest army in the world back then, which was Napoleon's army. Napoleon's army was beaten in Haiti by the slaves, but no one talks about it. It's a shame. And Napoleon was so broke and so frustrated after that war that he was forced to send Louisiana to the Americans without the approval of his parliament. So that's when the Louisiana Purchase was done. Because Napoleon needed money so quick, he had some other military campaigns going on in Europe, so he needed money so quick that he was forced to send Louisiana, okay, to the Americans. Okay? And imagine this, If Napoleon was not built in Haiti, maybe Louisiana will never be sold to the US and America will not be what it is. If you look at the governmental stamps, you can notice that many of them have the baobab in the background. So a big and mature baobab can reach about 20 meters high, and the body can go sometimes up to 6-7 meters large diameter. They also have an amazing long life because some baobabs can live more than 1,000 years. Now what makes the baobab live so long is that it has some long and big roots. Also the roots don't go completely deep in the soil but spread out like this in the soil. And anytime it rains, the baobab does nothing but absorb a tremendous amount of water from the roots and store it in the body. Now when comes the drought season, the baobab can live by itself over 10 years, 15, 20, 25, up to 30 years without seeing rain. That's what makes it so special. Also, that's the reason why anytime you cut the body of the baobab, just wait a little bit, you'll see the sap coming out. Also, the baobab has some fruits. That's the green thing that you see pending, and the fruits are called the monkey bread, pain de singe in French. And we make a tasty juice out of it. That juice is called the Goree or baobab juice. Okay? You can find it in restaurants here later on if you want. Okay? Also, the leaves are very, very useful in Senegal because we dry them, pound them, and the powders mixed with our local couscous. Okay, we call it lalo. It makes the Senegalese couscous easy to digest, easy to swallow, and it also gives you appetite. Also, it is a tradition to have a big baobab at the beginning of every village inside the country. But in those baobabs, they dig a big hole in the middle of the trunk. Remember, I was telling that the baobabs can go like this, 6-7 meters large. So they dig a big hole in the middle of the trunk and the baobab still live. The reason is that since the baobab can live more than 1,000 years, it's some ancient and religious belief. They believe there's some good spirits living in the tree to make them live that long. And that's the reason why anytime there's a newborn baby in a village, a fresh newborn baby, the first thing they do is just take that baby and put him inside the baobab. That way the good spirits living in the tree can bless him and give him a long life, just like that. Also, when someone dies in the village, the last thing they do before they bury him is also put him in the baobab for some blessings before they bury him. So you can notice that the baobab is at the beginning and the end. Okay? Also, the baobabs cannot be cut in Senegal. It's bad luck to cut them. That's the reason why anywhere you find them, you have to leave them there. Behind the presidential palace in downtown, there's a huge baobab, and it's right in the middle of the road. So they can't cut it, they just use it as a roundabout. Okay? Also here on the island, I'll show you later on, we have a football field, and a baobab came out of nowhere in the middle of the field. So they can't cut it. The only thing kids do is play around with it. It's right here, I'll show it to you later. Okay? And the reason why we don't cut the baobab in Senegal is that when you cut them, the good spirits living in the tree will go away and it brings bad luck. So that church was built while the slave trade was going on because the slave trade was stopped here by the French in 1848. And that church was finished 18 years before the and of course it was built by the French Catholic missionaries who were here. It was slave labor, but under the control of those French Catholic missionaries. And many of those French Catholic missionaries who were here, unfortunately, they were involved in the slave trade. Like I was telling you earlier, in the slave house, they were the ones going to the coast, in contact with the tribal chiefs over there, collect the prisoners from the tribal wars, and bring them here and sell them as slaves. And that's the reason why the former Pope, John Paul II, the Polish Pope, he also came to this island on February 1992. It was exactly February 22nd, 1992. Just 3 months after Mandela left, the Pope came. Mandela came here on November 25th, 1991. The Pope, February 22nd, 1992. So when the Pope came, he first visited the slave house. And after the visit of the slave house, he made a big service in that church. Also at the end of the service, he made a memorable speech in the church. And at the end of his speech, he apologizes to Africa. Okay? So he literally said, I'm asking forgiveness to Africa because the Catholic missionaries who used to live on this island, they used the name of the religion in order to do the slave trade.
Wow.
And as the head of the Catholic mission, I came all the way back here to apologize to Africa for the involvement of the church in the slave trade. And that was very, very well received. Yeah, the Pope was a very good man. In fact, he's the only one who came and apologized for slavery here. But he did it in the name of the church. Many presidents came to visit the island. Their country was involved in the trade. They just feel sorry about it, but they never apologize.
Wow.
Okay? The reason is that if they apologize, the Africans will ask for reparation. Okay? And there's so much money involved that they don't want to go into it. Okay? Also, these cannons that you see here, they were placed here also by the French between 1907 up to 1937. They were built all the way in France in a city called Angoulême and transported all the way to here piece by piece to be placed here. And these cannons used to be 240 millimeter caliber. They were also able to hit any target within a range of 14 kilometers. They also used to go 360 degrees rotations, up and down, side to side, without any problems. But since they've been placed here in 1937, they were only used once in the history of the island. And it was on September 23rd, 1940, during the Second World War, the Fine Vichy, you know who the Fine Vichy were? The Fine Vichy were the French who were collaborating with the Nazis. They had been kidnapped to get a hold on France. Okay? They were the ones who used these cannons to hit and sink the British commercial boat from here. The birth of Africa. It was started in 2002 and finished in 2010 and inaugurated on April 4, 2010 during the 50th years of our independence. Okay? Because we got our independence from the French on April 4, 1960. Okay? And the statue itself represents a family coming out of the darkness of the volcano. And the darkness of the volcano symbolizes all the struggle, sufferings that the Africans had been going through from slavery time to colonization time, okay? Now they're coming out of that darkness to see the light of freedom. And that's the reason why when they jump up to the light, you can notice that the child is pointing west. So the child is just pointing to the ocean, and the ocean is the future of Senegal because we have a lot of oil and gas in the ocean that needs to be exploited. And nowadays, this is one of the highest statues in the world because it's higher than the Statue of Liberty in New York. It is also higher than the Christ Redeemer in Rio. Okay? And the whole statue was made of a mixture of bronze and copper. So 65% of bronze and 35% of copper. Okay? The man only weighed 100 tons, the woman 60 tons, and the child 10 tons. And the big particularity about this statue was that it was built by the North Koreans.